Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. We have a lot to get into. The Steelers played their first preseason game. They lost, but we'll debate some of the players and their performances. Also, the dynamic kickoff, which was anything but dynamic. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be your last place Pittsburgh Pirates. And here to discuss is your panel. Ray Fittipaldo from the Post-Gazette does a great job covering the Steelers. In the middle, it's Joe from the Joe Show. Joe Starkey, 93.7 The Fan, and Andrew Fillipponi, PM team, as well as
He's wired up.
I know he's very much wired up, so you know in this show tonight, you never know what you're going to get.
Alert the FCC. We need a delay for this guy.
Let's go, Bob. Let's go tonight.
All right, you want the first question? Here it is. Pirates 7 games in a row down the drain. They're 1-9 in their last 10. Who is most responsible for this mess?
Not Bob Nutting. And then everyone will say, oh, you don't want to blame Nutting. We all know what Bob Nutting is. He's a guy who prioritizes profits over winning. We all know that. That's the big picture. It stinks to have him as a team owner. The players have blown this season. And I can identify, I think every one of those 7 games was either a loss or a blown save by Bednar and Holderman.
Right.
Two guys with all-star resumes. Then you want to throw in the likes of Key Brian Hayes and Jack Sawinski and Henry Davis. If we're looking at the season as a whole, the players on hand who were counted on ruined the season.
Do you agree with that, Andrew?
I think it's letting Shelton and Charrington off the hook.
I didn't say they were solely responsible. I said they're #1 on the list.
So what is your question? Who is responsible for the 7-game losing streak or the whole thing?
Well, I'm going
I
to start with 7 games.
Bednar is, in my opinion, the guy I'm thinking of right now is him. And he's probably the one person on the team that his family watching, so that's great. We're really endearing ourselves to them tonight. No, but seriously, Bob, he's an all-star closer. He's been there twice. He's supposed to be automatic. He's blown 2 saves, and he came in to the 10th inning with a lead today and lost.
Which is effectively a blown save.
But let me ask you that. Second inning for Bednar.
Well, who would you rather go
I'm just saying, I've been harping about this all season long, that guys can't go past 1 inning. And now here in this game, he was pushing 40 pitches in this game.
I'm actually happy that they sent him out there for a second inning because it showed for once that there's some urgency here to end a losing streak and win a game.
I'd rather have seen Old Heller come in for an inning.
Oh, stop. Come on, man.
Ray,
I would. He was great the night before.
Give me your reason. Why have they lost 7 in a row? What's the biggest reason?
I mean, listen, Bednar, that's not a blown save. He hasn't been himself, but when you got a guy on second base and you got to get 3 outs, that's kind of Major League Baseball's way of.
Yeah, but he let that guy in.
He let 2 in, Ray.
I understand that, but I mean, it's a difficult situation for any reliever to come into, okay?
But he's supposed to be an elite reliever.
I understand that. It's Bednar, but if you want to talk about the entire season, Bob, year 5 for both Derek Shelton and Ben Charrington, they're the ones who pick these guys. I mean, we could have a conversation about
under constraint by the owner who won't go above a side. And I think if you look at the trade deadline, what you saw was bargain basement hunting.
They already benched the cleanup hitter that they brought in.
De La Cruz can't hit. He's a right-handed Jack Sawinski.
Let's have a conversation about when you should pay a closer, because they've had chances to trade Bednar the last couple of years, and they've held on to him. They're still not at the point where they're World Series contenders. Why have they hung on to him for this long?
But that thing, if they had traded Bednar at the deadline, they would have been rightfully crushed for having we're going to still think about the future while at the same time trying to win, this having it both ways, thinking about down the road and not prioritizing right now. I would have been all over them.
What about last year? They could have traded him last year.
I mean, there's responsibility all the way around, but if you want to whittle it down to these 7 games and a little bit before that even, it's Holderman and Bednar. I mean, what do you want Derek Shelton to do or Ben Charrington to do?
Holderman should have never been in that Arizona game, Joe. I mean, that was a brutal job by him.
Okay, then put in his other 3. I agree with the way he utilized him that game. But at some point, the players have to do it, especially guys with pedigree who are expected to do it.
Ray, let me ask you about Ben Charrington and Derek Shelton, both year 5. Most people say, well, you got to give them 5 years to figure out what they are. What they are is a non-playoff team, and they're currently in last place. So what do you do in this offseason? Shelton's already signed. I don't know for what.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. We don't know what the contract, how long the contract is. To me, if Bob Nutting is serious about this, I know the scouting staff that they have in place has rebuilt the pitching in the system. They haven't rebuilt the hitting. So if Bob Nutting is serious about this, I think he has to seriously look at moving on from either one or both of those guys. That's the bottom line.
My take would be both should be on the hot seat entering next season. And by the way, we paid for that stadium largely. They have a loyal fan base that spends their hard-earned money over there. How can they keep secret how long their manager is signed for?
Good question.
That's something that every fan deserves to know.
Right. Absolutely. And the fact is, to me, I agree, hot seat only because, Andrew, this, Charrington's put together a pretty good young pitcher, situation in his minors and up here. And I'm going to say now the pressure hot seat is not only on him and Derek Shelton, but the owner, even though there is no such thing for an owner, because he has to spend money in this offseason.
If I had to pick one, though, I would move on from Shelton before Charrington, because at least with Charrington, we have proof of concept. The guy's won a World Series before. I can point to the Joey Bart move, picking Skeens over Cruz, Jared Jones.
I could counter every single one of them with something just as bad. Do you think a manager is that important in baseball, honestly?
Have you watched the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I've had questions about relievers, but honestly,
that's
in the
90% of managing. Bruce Bochy has won World Series because of how he pushes.
Bruce Bochy has won World Series because he has studs on his baseball team.
He has not had great teams. I disagree with you on that. He's not had the best.
Was he the manager when Madison Bumgarner won him one?
Right. Okay, they've got Paul Skeens, Joe. I mean, if you're going to narrow it down to one pitcher.
Paul Skeens pitches 6 innings every 8 days now.
What do you mean? He's going 7 innings plus in every start but his last one. And the one, I guess the one before that, the last two. Okay.
Lost velocity.
2 out of,
by the way,
out of 15.
I'm not blaming Paul Skeens, obviously. I'm blaming the whole idea that you want to space out his starts and space out his innings.
Here's my rebuttal.
Get a new manager in here.
Okay, thank you.
That'll be it.
That is my.
Get a new manager. Get Jim Leland back.
Time out. Hold on a second.
That'll make all the difference.
Hold on a second.
That'll be a 10-win difference.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You think John Russell could have managed the 13, 14, and 15 teams with the same records?
Yes.
I totally disagree with that. Do
you
agree with that?
You know why?
John Russell.
A.J. Burnett, Francisco Liriano, Garrett Cole, Andrew McCutchen, Walker, Pedro Alvarez. Go ahead, change the manager.
Then why do you question him on your show? If he's completely insignificant or irrelevant.
It doesn't mean he goes unquestioned. It just means in the world of sports, baseball managers have very little to do with winning and losing.
He's terrible at his job. I don't know how else to say it.
Break the tie, Ray. What would you do?
Listen, they got to move on from both. I don't know who the answers are, the next GM, the next manager, but just move on from both and start anew. I mean, they're in that position. You have young pitching. Bring somebody in here who knows what they're doing.
All right, we got to take a break on that note, and I wish we didn't have to. I wish you could stick around for the commercial. It should be interesting. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about the Steelers in their first preseason game. A lot of questions, not many answers. We'll get into that next right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, we're back with more of the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown this year, number 25. And I'm going to get to the Steelers momentarily. First, we're going to continue with the Pirates since it was such a hot topic. And I want to ask this question first. Ray, Andrew McCutchen. Now, here he is. He's on his last legs, and he's still one of their most productive hitters, which is a sad state of affairs for the rest of their offense. Should you bring him back? Would you bring him back for one more year?
He's aging, Bob, but he's playing well. When you're a young team, at some point, you have to move on. So if they have a plan where they can get younger, I say do it. But knowing this team, I don't know if they have that plan.
Davis maybe the DH at the expense of McCutchen, if you think he can. Well, why not?
I mean, I've been wavering on this all year because it's a question that just hangs out there. If this team had a real lineup, if it was where it was supposed to be talent-wise, you would move on. But the fact that McCutchen remains one of their best hitters, you almost have to keep him at this point. You have to keep him. He's better than half the guys around him.
He could demand a raise. He could, they've been getting off the hook with him for like $5 million a year. He may say, you know what, I want 10. And
right.
That may lead to a problem. So you would bring him back. What would you do?
Same. I mean, his OPS is over 700. He's one of, I think, 4 guys on the team who's hit to that. I mean, I wouldn't play him. Hopefully, best case scenario, he's not playing 145 games again next year because you've got in your lineup.
But he's a DH, which means he can't play a position, which means you have a bunch of guys who have no position. And I'm going to list them for you right now. Davis, I think Cruz is not eventually your shortstop. Andy Rodriguez, I don't know what they're going to do with him. So what do you do? If he's your DH and you have bats, younger bats who can be productive, where do you go with it, Ray? I mean, somebody's got to figure out a way to get these guys in positions to play.
I think you put Cruz in right field because you still want to take advantage of that arm, and you put Kiner Falefa at shortstop.
And then Gonzalez at second.
Where do you put Dela Cruz then?
Well, he hasn't exactly.
He played left in Miami, but it's a bigger left field, and he's not a great defensive player. But then Reynolds would have to play center.
And Reynolds has played center.
Yeah,
He's
I
okay.
guess.
He's okay at it.
Cruz, they should send away for a month with Jack Wilson. Seriously. Go learn
He
how
worked
to
with
play.
Wilson in all spring training. That's
Learn
the ironic
how to play
thing.
the position.
I don't
It's
think he
not
can.
It's not
I think
going
he's
to
too
come
big.
to him. No.
Yeah.
He's
also,
not a natural shortstop.
mental errors out there. That double play relay that he didn't have to make and he made cost him a game when he threw it away. All right, beyond that, let's ask about Henry Davis specifically, Andrew, because he's down there, he's hitting the ball well. Who's your catcher next year? You have Joey Bart, who should be the starter based on what he's done, and you have Andy Rodriguez, who was supposed to be the starter this year. He got injured. And Davis is a #1 overall pick. How do you solve that problem?
I think Bart's your starter, and I think Rodriguez is probably split between first base and catcher, would be my
And Davis?
answer right now. And I think Davis is the odd man out at the moment. I would trade him.
Joe, would you trade him?
I mean, I hope he can still hit here, is what I would
If
say.
he can, that's why.
So, but I do agree that Bart has to be the guy. He's earned it. Endy, I thought, was really good defensively when he was here. I mean, a year ago, before he got hurt, he was one of the fastest rising prospects in all of baseball. He got hurt. He had a tough time hitting, but for a very short period of time. And then Hank Davis, teach him right field, teach him first base, you know, have him get some reps at DH, whatever the case is. Because McCutchen, at his age, by the way, is no guarantee to play a full season. So if Davis has to start in AAA, start him in AAA.
If Andy Rodriguez is your best defensive catcher, I think there's a way to get him 60 to 65% of the games behind the plate, because Bart, with his back, could also DH. So about Davis, I don't know what you do with Davis. I mean, you could try him at DH, you could try him at first, but to this point, he hasn't proven he could hit major league pitching. So
What do you do with Key Brian Hayes? That's my question.
That's another question.
I mean, what do you do with him moving forward? Do you live with this?
He's signed. They ain't going to do anything but play him, right? Are they? They're not going to just dump him and spend the money. It's guaranteed money.
Third base to me is not a premium defensive position. It never has
But
been.
it is a premium offensive position.
That's why I think ideally he would be your shortstop.
Now you're going to move Hayes to short.
Yeah.
And who is third? Kiner Falefa third?
You move him to short so he doesn't hit there?
I would rather have Cruz at. Well, hold on a second. Part of Cruz's problems is how much of a liability he is defensively. So if you get good up the middle defense and Hayes is playing short and Cruz is over at third, I think that helps solve your defensive problem. It still keeps Hayes in the lineup, but now he's a shortstop.
That's the bad part. It still keeps Hayes in the line. I mean, you can't live with this. I'm sorry, I don't care.
You don't think they will? They have no choice.
They could trade him?
To whom?
Somebody who wants a plus WAR player who loves
And how
defense.
much money will that team ask the Pirates to pay?
I don't know. So you're just going to keep throwing them out for 500 more at bats?
I wouldn't, but they will because
I just don't think any major league team covets defense at first and third. I don't. I think like if a guy absolutely kills you there, it's a problem. But I don't think anyone is like, we're going to acquire this player because of how good he is at a corner infield position. I just don't.
no one thought that was a bad contract at the time he was signed because he's such a good defensive player. But I don't think anyone could imagine that he would struggle the way he has.
He averages one extra base hit a month.
A month. No. It's crazy. All right, we're due for a break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the Steelers next and what they did against the Houston Texans. That's next on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the Steelers. Next in action Saturday at home. You'll see it on KDKA-TV. The Buffalo Bills come to town, and they were losers 33-6 to the Bears. Ray Fittipaldo, you cover this team every day. I want to get your take on Justin Fields, the quarterback-center exchange, and Arthur Smith's imprint on this offense so far. I know it's only one preseason game, but you've seen the practices. Is there a big difference from what we've seen from Matt Canada?
Absolutely. I mean, Arthur Smith is a professional offensive coordinator. He's been a head coach in this league, and there is immediately respect among the players who are playing for him. So that's the biggest difference. As far as on the field goes, it's wait and see. I thought Justin Fields was okay. I think Russell Wilson will run this offense better, but I'm not going to knock Justin Fields for his passing. But those QB exchanges, like Mike Tomlin said, that's JV. And you can't have that. He's a 4-year guy in the NFL, and you can't have that happening in any game.
I mean, I couldn't care less about the quarterback-center exchange. Is that even going to be the center and the quarterback when the season starts? I don't think so.
Well, he's had a history of turning the ball over both ways, interceptions and fumbles. I'm just saying that's part of his background.
The attraction with Justin Fields is if we're going to go all in on a physical, pounding run game, can you imagine this guy as an early-stage Lamar Jackson in the Greg Roman offense? And let's just go. That's the attraction with him. Whatever happened the other night when nobody's game planning it is irrelevant to me.
Well, it's kind of like you're playing a half-court basketball game with Steph Curry and there's no three-point line. Because with Fields, what you want to do with him is you want to do read option, you want to make him a runner, and you want to see him use his athleticism. You're not going to put him at risk in a preseason game that way. So you're not going to see the best he has to offer. I actually thought the one play where it was play action under center and he found Jefferson over the middle of the field, I thought that might have been, you know, a good omen or a harbinger of things to come with him, especially big picture for their offense that we're seeing those types of plays put back in.
Don't you wonder, Bob, how tempted, if you could inject Tomlin with truth serum, and Arthur Smith for that matter, how tempted they are to say, let's go all in with Justin Fields? I just wonder about, I don't think they will at the beginning of the season, but I wonder how tempted they are.
Well, I know Wilson's
especially for a run team, if that's part of the run
I know
game,
Wilson's going to come back and play, and he's practicing now, but what if it's even a little bit like Burrow a couple of years ago with this calf injury, and he's rusty at the start of the year?
Yeah.
Well, to your point, Mike Tomlin said after the game he expects Russell Wilson to play on Saturday. At practice on Sunday, he was splitting reps again with Justin Fields. At what point is he going to take over the offense on a full-time basis, and how much time does he need, Bob? I mean, we're into week 3 here, and he's still not taking full-time reps. So this injury that was called, that wasn't called serious, July 24th, 3 weeks or so is pretty serious to me.
Yeah.
There was a report that the Tuesday that pads went on, he was going to practice full.
Right.
Did that not happen?
No.
Right? No, I'm saying, but that was the thought, was it not? That he was going to, the Tuesday pads went on, he was going to go full.
There was talk about that. I don't know who reported it. I don't think anyone from the Post-Gazette did, but it's been reported that it wasn't a serious injury, and here we are.
But we've seen things that you didn't think were serious.
Especially with quarterbacks in their mid-30s, Bob.
What was the injury with Najee Harris?
Liz Frank.
Liz Frank, that's right.
By the way, I think it's crazy that he's out there taking hits, but that's just me. A guy who didn't get his 5th-year option is out there taking hits in a preseason game for what?
Well, he didn't take many. What did he take?
No,
Two?
he played a third series.
All right.
He got hurt last year in the preseason taking 1.
Okay. Point well taken, Joe. I appreciate that.
Thank
Peyton
you,
Wilson, Ray, let me just ask you about him. He was running around a lot, looked pretty athletic.
Tremendous athlete. He's going to be this team's dime linebacker. He oozes what you want out of a dime linebacker. A guy who can cover and a guy who can play in the run game. He's not going to be a starter right away, Bob, but I think in due time, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a player who can help this team in the long run, too.
Have you guys seen enough to make that same observation?
I mean, not really yet, but all the reports we get from the likes of this man right here, and then watching him last night, watching a little tape breakdown by Brian Baldinger, old Baldy. The kid, I thought when they got him,
approval on him. Yep.
It could be a steal.
He's the most athletic linebacker since Ryan Shazier, and that includes Patrick Queen.
Ooh,
what about Devin Bush in his rookie year? Seriously.
All right, we got to go to a break real quick on that note. When we come back, we will wrap it up with an interesting topic, which I'm thinking of right now. We'll let you know what that is next. All right, back. Andrew Fillipponi, tackle situation. Fautano got banged up a little bit. He's going to be out maybe a couple of weeks. But we saw shifting on the offensive line, the tackles. How do you think it's eventually going to play out?
I'm not optimistic right now that Fautano is going to start week 1. And I was, based on what Ray was saying about training camp and the way he was progressing and looked the part. I'm not going to crush the guy because Danielle Hunter's one of the great edge rushers in the league, so he got a welcome to the NFL moment. But the fact that he's now going to miss 2 weeks or thereabouts, I think that's going to give Tomlin the motivation or just enough to keep Moore at left tackle and Jones at right tackle for the opener.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does. I mean, it's nice to have depth. Nobody's going to compare, Dan Moore to Jonathan Ogden, but it's nice to have a guy who's at least functional at that position.
He is going to have 2 weeks or so after that Lions preseason game to get back to where he was. And he was running with the starter. So if he could show them in that 2 weeks' time, I know it's practices and not games, but I'm telling you, people in that building love him, and I think he was on course to be the starter.
You still
we'll
think
see
that?
What happens now. Oh, the injury throws a monkey wrench into it, but it's he was certainly on that track.
All right, real quick, I have 30 seconds. Brandon Aiyuk will end up San Francisco, Pittsburgh, elsewhere. Quick.
He's going to retire from football.
Retire from football. Joe. Brandon
Come
Aiyuk.
on, give us something here.
He gave me
I
30
need an
seconds
answer.
for 3 people.
He'll wind up in Pittsburgh still, Bob. How do you
Okay.
like that?
That would be great.
In Pittsburgh, but it's going to drag on for some time.
I think he's going to sign with San Francisco. I just got this feeling the longer it goes, the more they're just going to say, let's do this and get it over with. All right, listen, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, don't settle for anything less. The #1 Cochran Kia's clearly better car buying experience. Enjoy exclusive clear-cut pricing where you get their most competitive offer up front. Take advantage of exceptional lease and finance rates and choose from a lineup of nearly 200 new models. Experience clearly better car buying at #1 Cochran Kia, in-store, online, cochrankia.com. All right, it's been fun. We are done. Thanks for joining us this week on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. And our thanks to our panel here, Andrew Fillipponi, along with Joe Starkey, who was hyped up coming in. He still may be as we leave. And Ray Fittipaldo, look forward to your coverage in the Post-Gazette. That's going to do it. Again, we'll be on the air Saturday night with preseason game #2. It's the Steelers hosting the Buffalo Bills. Live right here on KDKA. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday night to talk all about it on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown.